All right, so you want to jump into the startup world, huh? Well, we're going to take a deep dive into this Startup in 5 Minutes guide.
Yeah, 5 minutes is pretty ambitious,
It is a little bit ambitious, isn't it?
but
We'll unpack it and pull out the good stuff.
I think it's a great roadmap. It just simplifies things, defining the idea, market research, building that minimum viable product,
Right.
uh, testing it, getting feedback, setting up the business side, and then marketing it hits everything.
Yeah. And step one, defining your idea. That's like the foundation of everything, isn't it?
Yeah?
The guide asks some really good questions, like what problem are you solving? Who are you solving it for? And what makes you different?
You got to find that sweet spot where there's a real problem and you've got a solution nobody else has.
Right.
Sometimes uh, those aha moments come from just looking around you.
Yeah.
It's everyday life.
Right.
The guide even says that, like those little things that bug you every day,
Totally.
the stuff that makes you say, there has to be a better way. Those can be a gold mine for startup ideas.
Like, I'm sure everyone listening has been in that situation where you just can't find your keys.
Right.
And you're like, why isn't there an app for this?
Exactly.
And the guide's right. Talking to potential users, that's so important
Oh, yeah, for sure.
because it helps you validate whether people actually want what you're making.
It's a reality check.
Yeah.
You don't want to build something nobody wants.
Yeah.
Right. And that leads us to the next step, market research.
Okay, so we've got our amazing idea. Now we got to make sure there's actually people out there who want it.
Yeah.
So what does the guide say about tackling this?
Well, you got to scope out the competition. Figure out what they're doing well, where they could be better, and then see if the problem is big enough to even support a business.
So it's not just about a cool idea. It's about whether there's enough demand for it.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And competitor analysis, that's a fun one.
Yeah.
Look at their prices. What are people saying about them online?
Okay,
It's like gathering intel
I love that.
to inform your strategy.
So we've got the idea, we've done our research, and now it's time to actually build something right.
Minimum viable product, MVP.
Yeah, the MVP.
It's about starting small, building a simple version just to test the waters.
Not the whole shebang, just the sneak peek.
Exactly. You don't need to go for perfection at this stage.
Yeah.
It's more about functionality. The guide gives some great examples like a simple website for a delivery service or using a platform like WordPress to test an e-commerce idea.
Oh, yeah, like Shopify, too. Makes a lot of sense. Be resourceful, right?
Exactly. And there are so many stories about successful companies who started with a super simple MVP,
Really?
like Dropbox. They started with a simple video explaining their idea before they even had the technology built.
Wow, I did not know that. So it's about getting it in front of people quickly. Okay, so now we've got our MVP up and running. Now what?
Feedback time. User feedback is everything.
Okay.
Ask your testers what they love, what they hate, what they'd pay for, what's missing.
So it's like turning those initial reactions into a to-do list.
Exactly. You build, you test, you get feedback, you go back and make changes. And, the guide also mentions setting up the business essentials.
Right, so we've got the exciting part of the idea, the research and building. Now it's time for the less glamorous stuff,
Yeah.
the business side of things.
You need a solid foundation.
So register the business, get the website going, figure out social media.
Yep. All that.
And then there's the big question, how are you actually going to make money?
Revenue model.
Right.
The guide touches on this, but it's a big deal.
Yeah, it is.
Are you thinking subscriptions, commissions, selling products directly?
So many options.
Yeah. And they each have their own implications for how you run your business.
Right.
It's not about picking what sounds cool. It's about aligning your revenue model with your product, your target market, and your overall business goals.
This is where it gets strategic.
And, it doesn't have to be perfect on day one.
Right.
You can adapt and adjust as you go.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. Defining the idea, researching the market, building that MVP, getting feedback, the business setup, revenue models. We haven't even touched on marketing yet.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole other beast.
The guide briefly mentions it.
Social media, online communities, meetups.
Right.
But there's a whole world of marketing strategies to explore.
And that's what we're going to be diving into next.
Yes, we'll talk about different marketing strategies, how to pick the right approach, and how to craft a message that resonates with your target audience.
Just stay tuned.
Welcome back. I'm excited to dig deeper into some of these startup strategies, especially the marketing stuff.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground, but feels like we've only scratched the surface.
That's the startup world for you. Always something new to learn. But let's go back to the minimum viable product, The MVP.
Right, the MVP.
It's so important.
It's tempting to want to launch with a fully polished, feature-packed product,
Yeah.
but why is starting with a simpler MVP so important?
Building a full product takes so much time and resources. You spend months perfecting something, and then people hate it. You've wasted all that time.
So better to get feedback early on, even if it's not perfect?
Exactly. At least you'll know if people even want what you're building, and you'll get feedback to help you improve it.
Test the waters before jumping in.
Right. And remember those examples we talked about? A simple website for deliveries or using Shopify to test an e-commerce idea.
Yeah.
You don't need to build everything from scratch.
A lot of these platforms take care of the technical stuff for you too.
Exactly.
So once we've got our MVP out there and we're ready for feedback, what's the best way to do user testing?
Get testers who actually represent your target audience. People who would actually use your product in the real world.
So if I'm building an app for busy moms,
Right.
I shouldn't be testing it with my teenage nephew.
You want feedback from people who understand the problem.
Right.
And once you've got your testing group, you got to guide them. Give them clear tasks and ask the right questions.
So you don't just say, what do you think?
Right.
You got to give them structure.
Exactly. And don't forget to observe how they use the product. Where do they get stuck? What do they like?
Like we're detectives gathering clues.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And remember, this isn't a one-time thing. You got to keep testing as you make changes.
So it's this constant back and forth,
Yeah.
testing, refining, testing again.
Exactly.
But before we get too carried away with the product itself, let's circle back to the business side.
Right. You need a strong foundation for your business.
The guide talks about registering the business, setting up the website and social media, and figuring out the revenue model. Let's break those down.
Okay, so registering your business makes it official, legal.
Right.
The process depends on where you are, what kind of business it is. But usually it's paperwork, licenses, permits.
Got to follow the rules.
Exactly. It protects you from legal trouble. And it makes other things easier, like opening a bank account or getting funding.
Speaking of funding, that brings us to the revenue model.
Right? How will your startup actually make money?
Pretty important detail.
Absolutely. It's how you stay afloat financially. There are so many different models out there. The best one depends on your product, your market, your goals.
We've all heard of subscription models like Netflix or Spotify.
Right.
What are some other common ones?
Transaction-based models. Every time someone buys something, you make money, like with e-commerce.
Okay.
Then there are commission-based models. Platforms connecting freelancers with clients, taking a cut.
So many different approaches.
It's a big decision.
You got to think about it early on because it affects everything else.
Your pricing, your marketing, everything.
It's this giant puzzle.
Right.
All the pieces need to fit together.
And again, it doesn't have to be perfect right away.
Right.
You can adapt your model as you go.
Okay, we talked about registering the business, the revenue model. What about setting up the website and social media? That's pretty straightforward, right?
You'd think so.
Yeah.
But there's some things to consider. Your website and social media, those are often the first things people see.
First impressions.
Exactly. Your website needs to look good, be easy to use, give people the info they need.
Okay.
It should be clear what your business does and why people should care. And your social media needs to reflect your brand.
Be engaging.
Yeah.
It sounds like there's room for creativity here.
Absolutely. Experiment. Find what works for you. Be consistent, be authentic, be engaging.
Make those connections.
Right. And remember, your online presence evolves.
Okay.
As your business changes, so should your website and social media.
Always adapting.
Yep. Okay, so we talked about the foundation. Registering the business, revenue model, online presence. Now for the fun part, marketing.
This is where it gets exciting.
So many possibilities, but it can be a lot. Where do we even start?
The guide mentions social media, online communities, local meetups. But there's got to be more than that, right?
Well, yeah, tons more. But before we get into specific strategies, back to basics. Remember market research. Understanding your target audience is key.
Right. Got to know who you're trying to reach.
Exactly. Look back at your target audience profile. Their demographics, interests, what are their pain points? Where do they hang out online? What do they read, watch, listen to?
Like we're detectives again.
Exactly. Once you know that, you can explore different marketing channels and strategies.
So what are some of the most effective approaches for startups?
One that's becoming really important is content marketing.
Okay.
Creating and sharing valuable content.
Like blog posts, articles, videos, infographics.
Exactly. You're providing value, establishing yourself as an expert.
I like that. It's not just about shoving ads in people's faces.
It's about building trust.
So what about paid advertising? Should startups consider that?
Paid advertising can be great, especially if you need results fast. Google ads, social media ads, you can target very specific people.
So if I'm selling organic baby food,
Right.
I could target parents with young kids who are into healthy eating.
Exactly. Plus, you can track your results and see what's working.
Takes away some of the guesswork. But it sounds like you still need a strategy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You need to know your audience, your budget, your goals, and even then, you might need to adjust as you go.
Flexibility is key.
Yep. No one size fits all in marketing. Experiment, see what works for your audience.
It's about finding the right mix of tactics.
Exactly. Which brings us back to continuous learning. The marketing world is always changing. So stay curious, try new things, and adapt.
So what are the most important things for startups to keep in mind when it comes to marketing?
Build relationships with your audience, provide value, be authentic, be patient. There's no quick fix.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly.
Build trust, create a community, and don't forget there are resources out there to help you.
Oh yeah, tons. Mentors, startup communities, online resources.
You don't have to do it all alone.
Right. And we're going to talk about some of those resources in the next part of our deep dive.
Sounds like we've got a lot more to explore. Stay with us.
Okay, we're back and ready to keep going with this whole startup marketing thing. We were talking about knowing your audience and those different strategies like content marketing and paid ads. It's a lot to think about.
Yeah, it can be overwhelming, but you don't need to do everything at once. Just focus on the strategies that make sense for your audience and your goals.
Okay, so pick the right tool for the job, but how do you even know where to start? Any specific resources you recommend for startups trying to figure out this marketing stuff?
Oh, tons. HubSpot is a good one.
HubSpot.
They've got a bunch of free stuff like blog posts, ebooks, even courses, all about digital marketing.
Okay, HubSpot. Yeah, I've heard of them. What kind of things can you learn from them?
Pretty much everything. Content marketing, SEO, social media marketing, email marketing, they cover it all. And they have a lot of stuff just for startups.
So it's tailored to the startup world.
Exactly.
Cool, cool. What other resources are good?
Google Analytics. It's free, and it gives you all sorts of data about your website. Oh, yeah, Google Analytics.
Like who's visiting, what they're doing, how well your marketing is working.
So you can see where your traffic's coming from, what pages people like.
Exactly. It's super helpful for making decisions about your marketing strategy.
And it's free, which is great for startups on a tight budget.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of budget, one of the best tips is to focus on organic marketing.
Organic marketing.
Marketing, stuff that doesn't cost money. Content marketing, SEO, social media.
So basically, create good content, get your website ranking high on Google, and build up your social media.
Exactly. It takes work, but it can be really effective, especially when you're starting out. Then once you start making money, you can try paid advertising to reach more people.
So start with the free stuff, and then use ads to boost your growth later on.
Exactly. And always remember, marketing is about testing things out. Try stuff, see what works, and then make adjustments.
So don't be afraid to experiment.
Right. There's no one right way to do it.
We've covered a lot today. Defining the idea, building that MVP, the business side, and now marketing. Any final words of wisdom?
Building a startup is a marathon, not a sprint. You're going to hit bumps along the way, things will get messy.
Yeah.
But if you really believe in your idea, just keep going, keep learning.
It's about the journey.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to ask for help. Find mentors, join communities. There are people out there who want to help you succeed.
Building a company can be lonely sometimes. It's good to have support.
Exactly. And hey, we're here to support you too.
That's what the deep dive is all about. Keep dreaming big, keep trying new things, and keep pushing the limits.
We can't wait to see what you create.
And that's a wrap for today. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into something awesome. Until then, keep learning.